What do you think of dating single moms? It's not always easy. Instead of just the two of you, you have the kid and the ex. I tried it and she was cool, loved the daughter, but the drama with the ex proved to be too much for 22-year-old me. At 22, that's not a surprise. Being the roommate of a single dad was challenge enough for me. I dated a single mom with an ex and it was hard and led to our breakup. But I'm together with another single mom now with no ex and it's great. Hugely depends on your relationship to the kid. I was 29 and it's been working for 6 years for me. 22-year-old me would have run away long ago. LOL. Good for you for not diving in only to give up on the kids. That shit is hard on them. It takes good self-awareness on your part. Good for you. I was engaged to a single mom once. Met her son when he was 8 and he and I got along great. His dad wasn't all that active in his life, so he essentially became my stepson. I taught him how to ride a bike, coached football, took him to school /DR appointments, built rockets and launched them at the park, took him to Disneyland, the whole 9 yards. We all lived together for 3 years and one day, his mom, my girlfriend, decided to cheat with just a friend from her work. Needless to say, we ended the relationship and I never got to see him again. Poof, just like that, the kid that I loved like a son was gone and I had exactly zero right to see him again. It was the hardest thing I'd ever had to do, it ruined me. I hate her for what she did. I loathe her. I wouldn't cross the street to piss on her if her hair was on fire. Leaving her was easy, leaving him wasn't. After that, I won't date single moms seriously again unless her kids are significantly older, late teens. The risk of that hurt coming back to haunt me isn't anything that I think I could withstand again. Man, I experienced that from the kid's side. It is not fun, let me tell you. I would never even think of dating a single mom precisely because of the chance of that sort of thing happening. All situations being different, I'm curious how the single mom explains that to her kids. I think we could hazard a guess. The easiest person to blame is the one who isn't there to defend or explain themselves. My story is similar. Her son was about 6 months old when we met. The father was not in the picture whatsoever. We became really good friends, and after about 6 months, we started dating. I woke up in the night with him, changed his diapers, and gave him baths. I did all the fatherly duties. My relationship with her was interesting. But I really enjoyed this kid, so I was putting extra effort into making it work. I was really bonding with this kid, and he had only known me as his male role model throughout his first few years. I loved the kid. Well, he started calling me Dada and I couldn't have been more proud. Unfortunately, after almost 2 years, she broke it off with me. She didn't have much of a reason, but it was sudden, and she moved all of her stuff out of my apartment while I was at work. This child that I fell in love with was gone. It was really hard for me. Her and I hung out a few months later, and she didn't want to get back together, but was mad at me that I wasn't around to help her with her son. I didn't want to confuse the poor kid, as I felt like I would be dropped the moment she didn't need me. It really fucked me up for a while. It made it really hard to date girls with kids. Not because they were moms, but because I was afraid that I'd get attached to the kid again and then the mom would leave me. It's alarmingly common to man. Some women, and men, will take, and never care about anybody else. There's a reason a lot of single parents are single. Seriously. For women, you're in last place for a man with a kid. Of course the children come first, but then there's typically an ex to whom he's at their beck and call 24/7, then his family, his friends, her family, sometimes her friends, and finally you. Was friends with a divorced guy who brought his ex-mother-in-law everywhere. We'd invite him and his kid to a park and he'd show up 3 hours later with drunken Mill and excuses about how she had held him up. I kept imagining him on dates with Mill tagging along. She wants value without providing any. What's so hard to understand? Understanding it is not what's hard. What's hard, for me at least, is dealing with the sheer rage these type of people invoke in me. For them, love is leverage. Never allow yourself to become emotionally attached to someone who shows signs of this behavior. She thought the friendship had a help me take care my kids clause. Did she communicate that to you? No. She told me that she thought I was going to be around more to see him. I didn't want to confuse the poor kid by being in and out of his life, and then taking care of him until she found the next chump. Funny thing is, she dated a dude for a while after me. A couple of years later, her and I were hanging out. She was artsy, and I asked her to make a shirt for me. She started telling me about how awful he was and how great I was. And then she asked me, what do you think about you and me? Hard no. Sorry lady, I won't play that game anymore. Currently going through this. Her daughter was basically my kid for 3 years. She'll be 10 in a couple months and I'm not even allowed to send her a birthday card or call her to sing happy birthday because me having a relationship makes my ex's new boyfriend uncomfortable. There's nothing I can do about it either because she's not biologically mine. I miss being her dad every day. The thought of possibly having that happen again has essentially eliminated single moms from my dating pool. The fact that you want to call her to sing happy birthday warms my heart. I'm sure your presence in her life has made a deep impact on her in some way. It's selfish of your ex to deny her daughter the connection with you as a healthy role model, despite how her current boyfriend feels. What is best for children and their healthy development in the world should always be put first by parents and their caretakers. It sucks that you're dealing with this nearly identical situation here. My ex-stepdaughter was in my life from 2 years old to 10. I got divorced last year and have had zero contact with her since. Most traumatic experience of my near 40 years alive. I won't date a single mom ever again. I'll die alone before that happens to me a second time. I'm sorry to hear that, man. I feel your pain. Hang in there and know that you made a positive impact on her life and that when she's old enough she may reach back out to you. There's always hope. This happened to me. Only it was with my stepbrother. His mom and my dad got together when I was around 13 or 14. At the time, he was only 4. His mom owned a nail shop, so he probably spent more time with me than her. He loved me like a true brother, but at that time, I think I found him a little annoying. If only I could have taken another game of Brawl Stars with him, or let him win when playing as robots in the yard. I miss him so much, the little rascal. I'm so sorry. That was heartbreaking to read. That's one reason I didn't consider dating until my kids were young teens. I got divorced when they were very young and I didn't want them to get connected to anyone in case the person I was serious with didn't work out. And I speak from experience when I say the child will have it even worse. The abandonment and the sudden lack of a strong father figure is very difficult. I went through it and 40 years later I still miss him. And the child will definitely blame themselves too and wonder what they could have done better to prevent these men from always leaving. I never even thought to blame myself. I guess I found a way to avoid the whole ordeal by never even really getting to know the guys. Dunno how healthy that is by itself. Don't forget the hurt for the kid. I was that kid once. My mom had a boyfriend who became my mentor and treated me like his son. He taught me how to fish and took me hiking. I really liked him. But my mother was a crazy alcoholic and he just couldn't handle it. One evening when my mom was freaking out in a drunken rage, he grabbed a backpack, stuffed a few things in it, told me, "Sorry kid, but I have to go," and walked out to the road to stick out his thumb. A car stopped a few minutes later and he was gone. Just poof, like a fart in the wind. I never saw him again, and it hurts to this day, almost 40 years later. My ex had at the time a 3-year-old autistic son when I met them. He had no supports and was pretty difficult to deal with. I had connections at early intervention due to my study, and so I made them aware of him, and they realized they had overlooked him and he had gotten lost in the system. His father also had little to do with him, and over time he decided to call me Daddy. I loved him like he was my own. It's a long story, but I didn't realize that she had a history of overlapping relationships, and she had done it to the guy before me, with me when we met. She ended up doing it to the guy after me, having me look after her son to go out with friends when she was actually dating said guy. I didn't learn of this until post-breakup. Like you, leaving her was easy. Losing her son was the most difficult thing I have had to go through. I grieved as if he had died. It ironically would have been easier if he was mine biologically, as I would have had rights. I fell into a deep depression because of it. I don't mean to minimize how shitty of a thing that was to do to you, but man, what a shitty thing for her to do to her own child. That kind of instability is seriously damaging in early development. How have we become so myopic and narcissistic to believe that our happiness is the most important thing in life, F everyone else including the next generation? I think you'd be surprised by how many people will bounce new parental figures in and out of their children's lives. It's very damaging to them. I can name 3 single mothers off of the top of my head that have had their young children call multiple different men dad before the age of 3. I'm aware of its prevalence, particularly the lower down the socio-economic scale you go. But it is a terrible strategy. One's own happiness is definitely important. But when you have children, you take on the responsibility for them and their well-being and happiness. That is someone who is brought into the world due to your choices, and is entirely dependent on you as a result. To make yourself happy at their expenses. I have a similar experience. Moved in together, was a full-time father/family man. Thought that was the rest of my life. To go from that to a tiny flat, just a mattress in the floor and a lone chair in a lounge is a pretty devastating shift. It's an ego death in a lot of ways. That's relatable. No kids, but I went from looking at homes to buy with my wife to being alone in a cold studio basement suite with a mattress on the floor, waking up multiple times a night with large spiders crawling on me. This happened to a buddy of mine. Raised 2 kids with another woman, was basically their father, and when it ends you have no rights to ever see the kids again. Advice coming too late, but you may have rights to a child as a step-parent after you have separated. You have to go through court to get an order though. The really heartbreaking thing is that was probably just as hard on that kid, and that scar will affect him the rest of his life. His dad's not even in his life, and his father figure can be ripped away just like that. That's why I can't date single moms. I can't gamble with the permanent impact my presence is going to have on a kid's life. I trust my girlfriend and everything, but this is definitely one of the biggest fears I have regarding our relationship. It would be hard to leave the kid. My ex-wife's kid is maybe 6 now. We separated when he was almost 4, and I'd been around since a year and a half. I miss him so much. My dad dated a single mom for a while, and I totally bonded with the kid. He was so pumped to play Xbox with me and play football in the backyard. I moved while he was visiting his dad, and by the time I came back into town she had gotten back with her ex-husband and my dad was dating someone new. Poof. My little brother of 3 years was gone. I still have his first football picture. The one where he got down on his knee and kneeled on the field. I hated his mom, but he was great and it hurt in a weird place. It was too complicated for me to understand, but I was so angry I'd never see him again, and he was too young to just reach out to. Not that his mom would have allowed it anyhow. Making a positive influence in a child's life is never a bad thing. For a minute, a day or 3 years you may have made all the difference in the world, and this could change their life. Don't let someone's stupidity change the positivity. Good luck. Thanks for watching my channel.